Aloha and welcome back to another video. Today I'll be covering Batman Year One by Frank Miller. This was a miniseries that stretched from February to March of 1987, and it went over Batman's origins. DC did this with Superman a year prior in 1986 with The Man of Steel, which was a miniseries covering Superman's origins in similar vein. And a darker kind of recreation. DC knew that they were able to do this because of certain continuity reasons that are tied to Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was DC's big event at the time that helped kind of usher in a recreation of a lot of the DC heroes that we know today. This, along with The Dark Knight Rises, is what helped kind of birth the modern Batman that we know, the darker, more mature Batman that we know. This issue is this trade, you could call it. This trade is good. It really is. It's highly renowned, along with the Watchmen and the aforementioned Dark Knight Returns. It's seen as a must-read in the comic book industry, but I'd actually say it's not. Year One is said to be the best place to start for Batman because you have to, what better place to start than the origins, right? This covers all the details you need to know about who Batman is and how he became Batman. But I'd also argue, if you've seen even one Batman movie before, if you know anything about Batman, you grew up in the era that I grew up in, you'll know all the stuff that's contained within this. You won't know a lot of the finer details, sure, but you'll know the gist of who Batman is, and so really I'd say you don't need to read this. The question isn't whether you need to read this, like a lot of people say. I think it's whether you should read this. And for me, I thought this was quite good, but it wasn't spectacular. People put it up as being put it up on a pedestal and say that it's some of DC's best work, some of the comic industry's best work, and it's really not. It's good for what it is, but there are certain issues. The art style, as you can see, our art is subjective, but personally, I think the art is good in premise, and at times it can look great, but in other times, like you can see here, it's a little too bland color-wise. Certain things kind of blend together a little bit, not by a ton, but also I'd say certain colors like that I find cool, but other shots are a little too mixed together, as you can see here, and that's not a deal breaker, but what kind of bothers me more is some of the blank space that are left in certain panels, as you can see here. Certain, why can't we see anything behind him? Why aren't there more details? And I know it's time restraints and all that kind of stuff, but if I'm gonna complain, I'm gonna complain, right? And that's kind of and even in other shots, right, where there is more going on, there seems to be there's a sacrifice for detail. Detail is sacrificed for a kind of artistic merit, you could say, or for an artistic vision, and I respect that. But personally, I would have preferred if things looked the way they did, but I wish there was more detail in different shots. I wish there was less kind of blank space and kind of just plain conflicting colors or contrasting colors. Story-wise, the story's great, but I think it's a bit too confusing at times. There's a lot going on, and I don't think the writing does a good job at balancing everything. This is just a first-time read for me, and I haven't read as many comics as some people, so maybe that's the issue, right? Maybe if I read more comics, this will be easier to read. But it's also seen as being one of the first Batman, or if not the first Batman comic you should read. So that seems contradictory, right? It should be the first Batman comic you should read, but if you also need to have experience in reading comics to fully be able to know how to and understand all of the different plot points that it's juggling, then it's kind of problematic, isn't it? It's not bad at all. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say this is bad or that you should avoid it, but I don't think that you should necessarily read it just on the merits that people say you should. I think you should look up, like I thought. I think you should look at the plot, online, not the full plot, but I think you should look up, what the back of the book would say. And I think you should look at some of the art and things and kind of judge for yourself whether you think it sounds interesting to you, as opposed to picking up because you feel like you have to. I picked this up because I felt like I had to. And at first, because I was expecting a lot more, I ended up kind of feeling disappointed at first. But once you got to around issue 3, issue 4, when you got Catwoman, started becoming Catwoman, and you had a lot more action that was going on and things, it felt, I got more engrossed, and towards the end I actually things started turning the other way, and I started actually really appreciating the book for what it was, as opposed to what I thought it would be. But that's the thing, I guess, I guess that would be my review for you. I would tell you, don't go in expecting, the world. Go in expecting a good Batman story. Don't go in expecting something that's going to fully give you groundbreaking details that are going to change how you view Batman. Just view it as a history piece, in the sense of understand that this is where the modern Batman came from, but also you're not really going to learn much new if you've ever seen a Batman movie before, I'd say personally. Book's about 100 pages, the actual book, but what's nice is this, I think it's called the deluxe hardcover version, came out, published, or it was printed in like 2013 or something like that. This version actually contains quite a bit of extras. You got like a good 20 pages of extras. It's great. You got the script, and you got a bunch of like concept art, as you can see, and sketches, and you got a bit about Frank Miller himself, and he has a little his experiences with Batman and comics and such, and how he got into comics. That's really cool to see. So if you want to pick up a version, this might be the version to get. This version actually contains art that's different than the original. This was what the original art looked like. I actually think I might like this art a little better, surprisingly. So if you're looking for, I'd look up what the book looks like, what different versions look like, and choose for yourself. But this is a solid version. It just kind of matters. I guess the real deal breaker would be whether you think the old art looks better than the new art. In ways, I like the new art better here. Here meaning like here. And in ways, I like the old art a little better. But that's just me. I think if I was to choose between the two, I think I prefer the old art just a little bit more. It seems more style. Because I talked about my conflicting thoughts on the art and how it's like style versus detail. But I think because the old art feels like it's going more in the direction of style, it feels like it's fully committing to something, so it has more of an overall identity. And if I was reading that, I don't know if I'd complain about the lack of detail, but I don't know if I actually would. I don't know if I would latch onto that as much, because at least it would have more of an identity. Personally, that's how I feel. I know it's going to be controversial to some people, but yeah, and it's a good spine and everything. There's definitely some gutter loss and such, but that's to be expected, and that'll change as I wear down the book as I read it more. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Aloha.